Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 41, which is called The New Team 7. Apologies for not being on camera for this one. I have a lot of other videos to do over the course of the week, so I had to fit in this review kind of late at night, so I couldn't really record on camera here because of lighting. But anyway, we'll get through it here. It's a pretty interesting chapter. I definitely liked it a lot more than last week's chapter. I just felt like it was more sort of coherent in terms of telling a kind of clear-cut part of a fight with some, decent explanation, decent stuff that they were using, all the characters that they have in play. The chapter being called The New Team 7 definitely works because you're seeing the teamwork in action, and a lot of what's going on here feels very, very clearly directed. Like everything here is sort of happening for a reason in a way. I still think in general with the pacing, it still suffers from the usual Boruto manga problems of it doesn't really feel like a month's worth of chapters, and if it was in a weekly format, I think we'd cover much more ground, and also that we kind of end on a not the best cliffhanger in that it feels very repetitive, and that like this chapter sort of naturally ended on a point where like they just kind of ran out of pages and had to come up with something to tease next time out, and they just had to kind of go back to a dynamic from the previous chapter. But overall I think it is still a pretty solid chapter. So where does it start? So we obviously start off with how on earth do we figure out what Boro's special technique here is? This dark mist that he has, and they obviously figure out what it does. You slowly lose the ability to move, and we can't get near him. We can't really fight him until we figure out what's going on. So they talk about how it's getting worse and worse, and they have to figure this out quick. So it has to be some sort of a jutsu they figure out because he's weaving signs, but the karma mark couldn't absorb it. So what does that mean? And they sort of put all their information together, use some of the unique information Kawaki has, and they manage to, work through the explanation. The first, I think, very interesting reveal here is that the karma can only absorb energy matter like chakra. It can't absorb physical matter. So the explanation that's given here, and I think it's a pretty good explanation, is that he basically explains that the karma mark can absorb a water jutsu, but it can't absorb normal water, natural water. I like that distinction because it especially with water-based jutsu, it's always been that sort of confusing thing of like, they never really use it in ways you'd think it would be if it is just normal water, but they seem to create this distinction that there is something different about water that is created from a water jutsu. Like in that, you can sort of wonder, like, is it drinkable then? In that, like, if you're like dehydrated or something like that, trapped in the desert, but have enough energy to use a water jutsu, can you use that to sort of like refuel yourself, or is it that sort of situation where the energy you're kind of taking away to use the jutsu wouldn't be replenished in the water that you're drinking back in? It'd just be like a net neutral. So either way, it creates an interesting point of karma absorbs stuff that is created from jutsu, sort of regardless of what it is, which confirms that what Boro is using is not actually a kind of energy-based jutsu. So it's not actually a jutsu. So, okay, what is this? Sarada seems to sort of store in her mind the rules of the karma so far. And this is really where Mitsuki and Sarada really step up in the chapter. Mitsuki reveals that he trapped some of the dark mist inside his snake's body, and that he's going to let the snake release it, and then Sarada can use her Sharingan to really carefully analyze it like a microscope, basically, so she can see exactly what the mist is made up of. So the snake lets it out, she goes full Sharingan, and she reveals that basically the dark mist is made up of, it's a virus, basically. They say viruses, so obviously it's multiple things going on in there. And so this confirms that Kawaki, Mitsuki, and Boruto have all been infected by this virus. They have an illness. That's what's going on. That's why it couldn't be absorbed and all of this sort of stuff. So from here, they basically figure out that okay, if it's not a jutsu, that means it pretty much has to be scientific ninja tools. So a little bit of a jump there, but it makes sense. They've encountered previous members of Kara, so they've used scientific ninja tools. Boruto even notes that's their favorite toys, so they're sort of beginning to note that Kara sort of specializes in unique applications of ninja tools, scientific ninja tools. So they still figure out, like, okay, we know what it is now. What do we do about it? Like, it's great that we know that, but like, can we actually beat him now? So they need to come together as a team. So they need a commander to lead the team. And Mitsuki points out that if Sarada hadn't made the call to retreat, we would have been wiped out. So Sarada should be the captain of the team as it is right now. And they all agree to it. Boruto, of course, argues as you'd expect, but ultimately Kawaki and Mitsuki make the point clear enough. They argue her case, and yeah, it is Captain Sarada here. They're going to agree to her plan, and so it's a nice moment to see her voted in by the entire team as the captain here, and it makes complete sense of all the crew here that Boruto is too impulsive, as talented as he is. It's sort of similar for Kawaki, not to mention his sort of rudeness. He's probably not the best communicator. And then Mitsuki, while he probably has the intelligence for it, again, isn't the most vocal communicator. Just his personality wouldn't be particularly suited to being leader. So Sarada does make for the most natural leader in the team, which makes complete sense. So it's a pretty cool moment. It does have a nice ring to it, though not quite as nice as Lord Hokage. So just kind of noting that this is a cool step on her path to ultimately being the leader of the village, that her team has elected her their leader when they don't have Konohamaru with them. So we cut a little bit of time has passed, of course. Shiko comes out on her own to confront Boro, and he's like, "You're facing me alone." She reveals that she knows exactly what his power is, and he confirms that is the case. A scientific ninja tool that disperses viruses, right? We figured out your tricks. So, he says, "Want me to give you the answer, a jutsu you can use against it?" And he says it doesn't exist. So he comes in, he charges in, he uses lava style planet branding blast, which is the ability he used before. Sarada counters this with fire style fireball, big explosion as they sort of separate, and Sarada goes to move away. Boro says, keeping your distance to avoid the viruses. And she sort of notes, he's not as fast as I thought he was. She then runs and does a variety of Phoenix-style Holy Phoenix flowers. He blocks it with water-style Wall of Water. And she's running around. There's sort of this interesting, geometry in a way to the fight, is like they're sort of circling each other really quickly. But what ends up happening is that she loses sight of him and realizes that the way that they've sort of moved, he's ran in a full circle, she's ran in a full circle, and she's now sort of trapped in a ring of the dark mist. So the only way to go is to kind of go up and over this ring of the mist. He knows exactly that that's her kind of plan, and he sends her flying back down with just a standard punch. She then gets infected by the virus at this point, because it's all underneath her at this point, because it obviously disperses a little bit. And he notes, "You're starting to lose control over your body, right? This virus acts super quick. It's too late for you." He lifts her up, about to kind of finish the job. She attempts to use a jutsu, and he just says, "It's useless. Soon you'll be so stiff you can't even move a finger, just like how your three friends are feeling now." And this is when she reveals that it's all just her acting like she can't move has all been an act. I can't miss, not from this distance. And so she fireballs him directly, point blank in the face. They don't even show what his face looks like, I suppose, because it is such a devastating blow here. She then punches him as well. So really cool attacks here, and she just says, "Now boys, it's your turn." And it's revealed that the rest of the team is also fully back up and able to move, and he's shocked by this. We see him, he does do the hand signs for his sort of regeneration jutsu, just before he gets hit by this next attack, where Boruto comes in, Karma Mark is activated, Rasengan. Kawaki comes in behind Boruto and sort of touches his back, and sort of, it's like a team up sort of power boost here, because we see it's called Rasengan Unison, as it's this devastating Rasengan that just kind of explodes basically the top half of Boro here. He's like missing like a third of his body, basically, more than that. It's a huge explosion from this kind of unique Rasengan here. Everyone's sort of blown back, and we see that, the result of this is that it looks like they've basically just completely killed Boro as his body collapses. Again, his head is gone, his like entire like left part of his torso, left arm and stuff like that. And they think it's full victory. And this is where Boruto says, it worked perfectly, those antibodies. So you're wondering, like, wait, antibodies, how did they figure this out? Because Sarada just cut from I'm captain to initiating the plan. We don't know how it played out at this point in the chapter. But then Boro stands back up and immediately just regenerates. So this is probably one of the most extreme regenerations we've kind of ever seen in like Naruto or Boruto. Just complete regeneration of like a character's, head, limbs, stuff like that. They're all super shocked by this, and he's acting like nothing is wrong, basically. Kawaki does say, I forgot about your regenerative abilities, but, he says, they're greater than I thought. And this is where Boro gets thinking. Antibodies worked. I swear I just heard him say that. That's impossible. The antibodies that neutralize this virus exist only in my bloodstream, so how did they get a hold of them? This is when they reveal that, when the Mitsuki's snake bit Boro before, he got some of Boro's blood, and they were obviously able to kind of work that out in the meantime. This is when Mitsuki gets his kind of big moment of like, it looks like you've noticed. That's right, I harvested the antibodies from your blood, cultured them, and shared them with my teammates. Maybe it's my parents' influence. I have a habit of collecting everything around me. Now, aren't you well prepared? So you knew my attack was composed of viruses. And so, this is when they basically just explained, this is how we knew what you were how your ability worked. And they're basically, Sarada just urges everyone, don't let your guard down, stick to the plan, we'll use teamwork, in that it worked so well here that if they can all just work together, they actually do sort of have a chance against him, even though it seems like he's borderline invincible if he can just heal that amount of damage. And that, how do they kill him outside of just obliterating every like atom of his body? But trying to put some teamwork together on the fly. They kind of are about to, jump in for the next attack. And this is when Boro decides he's going to break up their teamwork. So he charges for the sealing jar where obviously Naruto's inside. Like, he's going to attack that and break it. Because obviously he implied that if you break the sealing jar, you'll sort of destroy what's inside. So he knows that Kawaki is being especially protective of this. So Kawaki does charge in before kind of they can activate some teamwork. And that's the cliffhanger ending of that. Like, Boro knew exactly what way Kawaki would act, and probably will switch his attack to being against Kawaki. And we could see Kawaki get pretty badly injured here or what. The reason I say it's not the greatest sort of cliffhanger ending is just that this, while yes it is set up from the chapter before this one, chapter 40, I almost feel it would have been better to utilize this for the first time here rather than just kind of redo the same thing again. It just feels like, the weird pacing of the fight basically has led to them having to end a chapter like right in the middle of something that probably you wouldn't usually want to end a chapter on, in that, like, okay, I assume Bora's just going to attack Kawaki, but like, that's the real intensity of it. Like, look, I still maintain like it's a pretty good fight so far, and now sort of the mystery sort of switches to what is like the details of his regeneration jutsu, in that every time we've seen him regenerate, he's had to sort of activate it. No, actually, because they did like it multiple times in the last chapter, and they showed him healing before he was hit and also healing after he was hit. So I was kind of thinking that like, oh, maybe they'll do a thing where like they hit him and then he can't heal, that he has to preempt it, but it seems like that's not the case. So unless they manage to sort of like take out his arms before he can heal or something like that, that might be something, in that it seems like he does actually have to activate a jutsu to activate the regeneration power. So if they can like destroy his arms before he can like preemptively heal, that might be a way to take him out. We'll see exactly how they do it. But yeah, overall, pretty solid chapter. They obviously took their time explaining in a decent amount of detail, the whole detail with the viruses. I think they maybe wasted a little bit of page count towards the end with explaining it directly to the reader at the start, and then kind of having the characters explain it again to Boro. They don't go in detail, but they do sort of go over the same topics a few times. It just filled in a few pages, and in a manga like this, where you kind of want the pacing to be like fairly quick and focused, it felt a bit weird to like overly explain this, but thankfully the explanation stuff is out of the way, and now hopefully it can just be like big moments in the fight as we build to whatever is going to happen next, because that's the thing, they're sort of stuck in here, and like I don't think we're suddenly going to see in the next chapter or two Sasuke suddenly make his appearance in this. I don't think Naruto's going to break out of the ceiling thing, so they have to deal with him here. And I'm wondering, are they going to build to some sort of a thing where it is like some crazy stage of the karma mark being used, where we see Boruto go sort of kind of Momoshiki, appearance, and Kawaki go a little bit like Ishiki. That could be one way to do it. Boruto's Jogan is always a thing you can activate at some point if you need to. So I'm wondering, will any of that stuff come up? But I do want to say just before the end that I think the main positives from this chapter was definitely putting Sarada in the leadership position. That was a very strong character moment for her to be voted in like that by the rest of the team, and like not really like have her suggest it herself, and it kind of come as a shock to her, but it be the perfect position for her on the team. And then Mitsuki also got a similarly strong kind of character moment with planning ahead, knowing the other members of the team to kind of set up how they could figure that out. So they were the two strong moments. But yeah, they're my thoughts on Boruto chapter 41. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.